Grammar or usage, mechanics, capitalization, punctuation, these are necessary skills of all good writers. Just list out the skills, and suddenly they become overwhelming. You feel like you're being bogged down and smothered by just the sheer number of items that you need to teach your students. Look at all of these different items: conjunctions, parts of speech, fragments, complete sentences, verb tenses, nouns, adverbs. Every year, teachers are reteaching these concepts over and over to students, and they just don't seem to master them. The whole reason why we're teaching these skills is that students connect them to their writing. And for many students, that's the last thing that ever happens. They don't see that connection, how these are really skills that will make them better writers. I'm going to show you how to take all of these different skills, combine them together in order to build sophisticated, high-quality sentences. Once we have our sentence in place, we can then go back and teach different types of writing conventions to the students. First thing that we had in our recipe was an adjective. What does the adjective do? The adjective describes the noun. And what word can we use? Ape, to remember how it describes the noun, describing its appearance, personality, and or emotion. On our cards, we have our heart with different emotion faces for emotion words as well as personality words, and we have our 5 senses visual for appearance words to use the 5 senses. When we're talking about the adjective describing the noun, we can also put underneath the adjective participles. What do participles do? Participles describe the noun. They use verbs that end in ing or eg or en. Participles can be a word or in a phrase that can describe the noun. I could have, running down the street, Michael hollered for help. Or, confronted with fear, Michael raised his hand to volunteer as lead in the play. Sometimes, instead of just having an adjective, we can have participles or a participial phrase in order to describe the noun. And why do we have the yellow for the adjective? Because it's yellow light, slow down, caution, caution. You need to describe the important nouns. Let's go to the noun next. Who or what is our sentence about? That's when I like to talk about the redundant please. Woo, woo, woo. This noun is going to be the subject of our sentence. That means it's important. So the redundant police are coming because in other sentences that we write, we may be referring to this noun again. So this is an important word. And that's why the redundant police may come and arrest us if we keep using those same important words over and over again in our writing. And in our sentence, we had snakes. What's another way to say snakes in our other sentences? A proper noun. We could use a pronoun. What is snakes? Are they plural or are they singular? If they're plural, then my pronoun needs to be they. If it's singular, then my pronoun needs to be it. That's why I need to understand whether nouns are plural or singular. To decide on the subject pronoun, I have to look at, and in this case, the word snakes, and decide, is that plural or is it singular? It's plural. So what do I use when I'm referring to snakes as the subject, using a pronoun in another sentence? The word they. I'm teaching grammar for a purpose, the reason why we need to know this. I can teach children why we learn synonyms so that we're not using the same important words all the time. One way that the redundant police won't arrest us is to replace the word snake with a synonym. So maybe I'll use reptile. Here we have different skills, but they're connected to our sentence writing. Our next part of speech is the verb. Our noun was our simple subject, and our verb is our simple predicate. Red light, stop, put them together. Do they make sense? And when we're looking at a verb, that's when I can teach other concepts. First, we had to look at what kind of sentence is this going to be? Is it going to be for a story or for information? So when we form that verb, we're going to either ask the narrative, the story question, what did the snake do? Or what happened to the snake? Or the big idea question if it's information. What's the big idea? What information am I telling you about snakes in my sentence? We knew that it was about information. Well, then we have to decide on what tense will we write our verb in? Past, present, or future? If it's a narrative, narratives are typically written in the past tense, not dialogue or thoughts. It depends on what the character is thinking or saying, but when the author's just telling what's going on in the story, that's usually past tense. While science most often is present tense. You wouldn't say the sun was our closest star. You would say the sun is our closest star. Just like here, we're talking about snakes and information we learned about snakes. So we're going to have this verb in the present tense because we're dealing with science and it's in present tense to show that this information is true. Along with our tense, we have our subject-verb agreement. Remember how we had our singular and plural subject. If you have a singular noun, then you need to have a singular verb. If you have a plural noun, then your verb needs to be plural. They need to match. We looked at our noun, which was snakes, plural. Next, we looked at the word slither and we said, slither is the verb we need to use because the noun is plural. So this is our plural verb. If the noun was snake, then we would put slithers. Singular noun agrees with the singular verb. And finally, we have our green cards, which are our modifiers. And what can our green cards do? They can add these different types of phrases or words just by asking these questions. Asking the sentence how, why, where, or when will create these adverbial phrases, prepositional phrases, or infinitive phrases. I'm showing you a few grammar skills that directly connect to these cards after you form a sentence. Every time you teach a grammar skill to the students, you want to go back up to the cards and show where does this fit in your sentences so that the grammar or the mechanics will make sense to your students and they can use it in order to create more precise and sophisticated sentences. Next, we're going to build a double the who sentence using our sentence pattern blueprint cards. And after that, we'll build a triple decker. Let's get started.